Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, Thursday means it's Tier 1 Thursday, and this week we are heading to Modern to check out a relatively new take on one of the classic archetypes of Modern. Scapeshift has been a thing in Modern for a long time, ever since Valakut was unbanned, really. It's been a major deck in the Modern format, but this build, Titan Shift, is kind of one of the most recent adaptations of a Scapeshift archetype. And this exact deck took Thine Win to a top 8 finish at a recent SCG event, so congrats to Win on his finish with the deck. A quick reminder before we break down Titan Shift for Modern: if you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So Scapeshift, as I mentioned before, has been a playable archetype in Modern for a long time, ever since the Valakut unbanning a few years ago, and the power of the card might not be apparent at first glance. You sacrifice any number of lands, you get any number of lands. It looks like, if you don't know what's happening, just really bad mana fixing, because you gotta sack all your lands to do it. You're not necessarily gaining any mana. However, with this deck, and with the help of Valakut, Scapeshift turns into a game-ending combo piece. So the plan of this deck is to spend the early turns ramping, and with this deck, the magic number is 7. 7 lands equals 18 damage with a Scapeshift. If you can't kill your opponent with 18 somehow, then you gotta go up to 8 lands, but that's kind of what the deck is shooting for. So Surge for Tomorrows on turn 1, Sakura Tribe Elder, Farseek on turn 2, Explorer also can be played on turn 2. All these cards are ways of getting an extra land on the battlefield to help facilitate the Scapeshift kill. So you get up to those 7 lands, you win the game. It also makes the deck super scary because it gives the deck a backup plan as well. Once a deck has a bunch of lands and some Valakuts, all it has to do is put lands on the battlefield to kill the opponent. So drawing a Farseek is actually like drawing a Lightning Bolt, which makes it much better than it is in other ramp decks. So the combo itself is to just cast a Scapeshift, get a Valakut the Molten Pinnacles, so that's 1 land. Then we talked about 7 being the magic number, so you get 6 more lands, all of those being mountains. They don't have to be basics, there's non-basics that are mountains as well. But if you get a Valakut in 6 mountains, you will trigger Valakut a whole bunch of times, hit your opponent for 18 damage. If it goes bigger than that, if you get up to 8 lands, you can do the same thing but with 2 Valakuts, and it just spirals out of control exponentially. With 8 lands, it's really hard not to kill your opponent with the Scapeshift Valakut combo. So that's kind of how pretty much every Scapeshift deck ever has worked. They all have slightly different support and different plans, but Titan Shift is different because it plays Primeval Titan, and this is kind of one of the combo builds of Scapeshift. This might sound silly to call it a combo build because Scapeshift is a combo deck. No matter what, you're built around the Scapeshift combo, but some of the builds of Scapeshift are more control decks. You're playing Cryptic Commands, Remands, and instead of trying to kill your opponent as fast as possible, you're more trying to ramp some, but also just keep your opponent from doing anything until you eventually Scapeshift with counter magic backup. In this deck, you're just all in on killing your opponent as fast as possible, and Primeval Titan is the card that makes this so scary. So Primeval Titan, you can fairly regularly play on turn 4 in this deck, and you can even tutor it up with a Summoner's Pack. And then Primeval Titan, when you get it, if you need to, you can find your Valakuts if you don't have them. If not, you just get more mountains, get more lands on the battlefield. Not only does it ramp you into your Scapeshift 7 lands magic number, but it also just kills the opponent on its own. And if you already have an active Valakut, Primeval Titan basically turns into a better Inferno Titan that's also a Primeval Titan. Not only are you getting the lands, but if you have enough lands and you have a Valakut, you also get to deal 6 damage, throw 2 lightning bolts at your opponent's face, and that's just when it enters the battlefield, you get to do that again when it attacks, so you shoot down your opponent's blockers, and it just gets so out of control so quickly once you get a Primeval Titan down. The other new addition and other backup plan of the deck is Chandra Torch of Defiance, which the deck can play as early as turn 3, and when you have a Chandra down, it just gives you this repeatable card advantage engine, so you're not going to run out of cards. It helps you fight through the ramp deck problem that occasionally you draw all finishers, no ramp, or all ramp, no finishers. Having a card advantage engine like Chandra helps make sure that you are fighting your way through bad draws. Also gives you some removal and can be a finisher as well if you plus it to the ultimate. As far as the rest of the main deck, just a little bit of removal. So you get 4 lightning bolts and 2 anger of the gods to deal with your opponent's creatures. And then the mana base, we've kind of had lands scattered throughout our deck tech, but wanted to break them down together. So 4 Valor Goods, you get 7 literal mountains, and then 6 non-basic mountains. So a total of 13 mountains that you can use to trigger Valakut. And then it's interesting in this deck, Cinder Blade is better than Stomping Ground because you're playing so many things. The Farseeks, the Sakura Tribe Elders, that type of stuff. Many of those are searching out basic lands, which means on turn 3, turn 4, your Cinder Blades are going to be coming into play untapped for free when Stomping Ground would be costing you life. Then we just have some fetches that, of course, can get mountains and a few forests to make sure that you can still cast your Titan through a Blood Moon. And then in the sideboard, Engineered Explosives, Anger of the Gods give us some removal. Hornet's Nest and Obstinate Baloth are creatures that are good mostly against aggro decks. So this is kind of the aggro plan. If you are afraid your opponent's going to run you over with Goblin Guides and Swift Spears and Burning Emissaries before you get to Valakut, these are the cards you want to bring in. And then Nature's Claim, it hits a whole bunch of things, but Blood Moon is very good against the deck, and even Ensnaring Bridge isn't bad because it shuts down the Titan attack, especially if your opponent has a way to deal with your Scapeshift plan. But Nature's Claim hits some really important things. Leyline of Sanctity, super good against the deck because you can't target with your Valakut triggers. So there's some really hateful enchantments, especially that the deck needs to deal with. Nature's Claim does it for just 1 mana, and because you deal so much damage to your opponent once you're Scapeshifting and so forth, the life gain isn't that important. Beast Within also takes advantage of Valakut because you give your opponent a 3/3 beast, but you can always kill that beast with a Valakut trigger, which is pretty cheap. So it just becomes kind of a Vindicate in your deck. So it gets Tron lands, gets the Ley Lines and Blood Moons we were talking about, Ancient Grudge, Affinity, Ensnaring Bridge, all that stuff, and Relics for the graveyard. And that is Titan Shift for Modern, and that's been our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.